The steam from the shower clung to the air like a secret, thick and unforgiving, as I peeled off my sweat-soaked shirt in the dim glow of the gym locker room. My skin prickled under the cool draft, every muscle still humming from the weights I'd just dropped, but it was the shadow in the corner that made my heart slam against my ribs. Alex stood there, frozen, his eyes locked on me, not with the casual glance of a buddy spotting a form, but with a hunger that stripped me bare before my fingers even touched the waistband of my shorts. I knew I should have turned away, barked something sharp to shatter the moment, but the weight of his gaze pinned me in place, warm and electric, pulling at threads I'd buried deep under layers of denial and late-night scrolls through apps I'd never admit to using. Seattle's relentless rain pattered against the high windows like a distant applause, blurring the world outside into irrelevance, and in that suspended breath, I didn't stop. I let the short slide down, felt the vulnerability bloom across my chest like ink in water, and watched as his throat bobbed, a silent confession that echoed louder than any word we could have spoken. That was the fracture point, the hairline crack in the foundation of our friendship that had held steady since freshman year at the University of Washington, when we'd bonded over cheap IPAs and dreams of escaping the grind. Hunter Ellis, that's me, 25 and adrift in the haze of post-grad life, slinging lattes at a Capitol Hill coffee shop by day and debugging code for a startup that paid in stock options and false promises by night. Alex Rivera, my anchor, the guy with the easy laugh and the engineering job at Boeing that made him sound like he had it all figured out, lived in a sleek apartment overlooking Elliott Bay, the kind with exposed brick and a view that mocked my Showbark studio in Fremont. We'd met in a psych elective, both nursing hangovers from the night before, and clicked over shared rants about helicopter parents and the soul-crushing weight of expectations. He was the straight-laced one, also I thought, dating women who looked like they stepped out of a J.Crew catalog, while I fumbled through hookups that left me emptier than before. But there in the locker room, with the scent of chlorine and cedar lingering, everything shifted. I stepped into my jeans, the denim rough against still damp skin, and met his eyes fully for the first time that afternoon. They were dark, stormy like the Puget Sound on a bad day, and in them I saw my own confusion reflected back, amplified. "You good?" I finally muttered, zipping up with deliberate slowness, testing the waters. My voice came out steadier than I felt, but my pulse thrummed in my ears. Alex blinked, color flooding his cheeks, and he rubbed the back of his neck, that telltale tick when he was cornered. "Yeah, man. Just zoned out. Killer set today." He grabbed his towel, slinging it over his shoulder, but the lie hung between us, fragile as fog off the water. We dressed in silence after that, the ritual of socks and sneakers filling the void, but the air crackled with unspoken voltage. Outside, the drizzle had picked up, turning the streets into slick mirrors that reflected the neon buzz of the city. Seattle in autumn was a moody beast, all grays and greens, the Space Needle a distant silhouette against bruised skies. We walked to our usual spot, a dive bar called the Rusty Anchor on Pike Street, where the bartenders knew our orders and the jukebox favored grunge relics from our college days. Over pints of local IPA, the fog lifted just enough for small talk, but my mind replayed the locker room on loop, dissecting every flicker in his expression. Was it curiosity? A fluke? Or something we'd both been circling without naming? Alex rambled about a project delay at work, his hands gesturing wide, but his knee brushed mine under the scarred wooden table, and neither of us pulled away. It was innocent, or it should have been, but the contact lingered like a brand. By the time we stumbled out into the night, the rain had eased to a mist that beaded on our jackets. My place was closer, a 15-minute trek through the hum of late-night traffic, past food trucks slinging ramen and the occasional busker strumming covers of Nirvana. "Crash at mine?" I offered, the words casual, but my chest tightened with anticipation I couldn't shake. He nodded, too quick, and we fell into step, shoulders bumping in the narrow sidewalk dance. Fremont was alive in its quirky way, fairy doors tucked into tree trunks and the glow of the Lenin statue watching over it all like a benevolent giant. My building was a converted warehouse, creaky stairs, and thin walls that let in the symphony of neighbors arguing or laughing. Up in my unit, the space was a testament to arrested development, posters of indie bands peeling at the edges, a half-assembled IKEA shelf gathering dust, and a kitchenette that saw more take-out containers than actual cooking. Alex flopped onto the couch, kicking off his shoes, while I rummaged for blankets. The TV flickered to life with some mindless Netflix procedural, but neither of us paid it much mind. We talked, like always, about everything and nothing, the latest Mariners flop, that arsehole professor from undergrad who'd emailed out of the blue. But the undercurrent pulled stronger now, words laced with double meanings I couldn't ignore. It was past midnight when the conversation lulled, the city sounds a muffled lullaby outside. He stretched, his shirt riding up to expose a strip of skin, and I caught myself staring, heat coiling low in my gut. You ever think about it? The question slipped out before I could cage it, hanging heavy in the lamplight. His eyes snapped to mine, guarded but intrigued. Think about what? You know. I leaned forward, elbows on knees, the room shrinking around us. Us. Guys. Whatever this is. He exhaled slow, running a hand through his hair, the strands dark and damp from the mist. All the time, Hunt. But it's complicated. Sarah, work, family. My dad's already on me about settling down. Sarah. His girlfriend of 2 years, the one with the yoga studio and the Pinterest perfect life. She'd crashed our bro nights more than once, all easy smiles and organic smoothies, but I'd always sensed the fracture lines there, the way Alex's laughs grew forced around her. I nodded, swallowing the bitterness that rose unbidden. Yeah. Complicated. Silence stretched, then he reached out, his fingers brushing my wrist, tentative as a question. The touch ignited something raw, and I didn't pull back. Instead, I closed the gap, our lips meeting in a crash of hesitation and need. It was messy, unpracticed, tasting of hops and regret, but it felt like coming home after years adrift. His hand cupped my jaw, thumb tracing the line of my stubble, and for a moment, the world narrowed to the press of his mouth, the shared breath that said what words never could. We broke apart, foreheads touching, breaths ragged. This changes everything, he whispered, voice rough. I nodded, heart pounding. Maybe it was always changing. That night, he stayed, the couch our uneasy truce, but sleep evaded me, my mind a whirlwind of what ifs and the ghost of his touch. Dawn crept in grey and unforgiving, painting the walls in muted tones, and as I watched him sleep, chest rising steady, I wondered if we'd just lit the fuse on something that would burn us both. The days blurred after that, a tentative dance around the new normal. We'd text through the afternoons, innocuous memes masking the subtext, meet for runs along the Burke-Gilman Trail where the evergreens whispered secrets to the wind. Each glance lingered longer, each accidental brush sending sparks. But Sarah loomed like a shadow, her calls interrupting our stolen moments, her voice tinny through the speaker as Alex painted excuses with effortless charm. One evening, after a shift that left me smelling of espresso and exhaustion, I found him waiting outside the coffee shop, hands shoved in his pockets, rain-slicked hair curling at the ends. Drive, he asked, nodding to his beat-up Subaru. We ended up at Golden Gardens, the beach park where the Olympics loomed distant across the sound, fire pits crackling under overcast skies. Couples strolled hand in hand, but we kept space between us, the unspoken rules of visibility a tightrope we walked blind. We talked about childhoods, mine in the suburbs of Spokane, all apple orchards and conservative Sundays, his in Tacoma, a military family that prized stoicism above all. As the sun dipped, painting the water in fleeting gold, he turned to me, eyes searching. I don't know what I'm doing, Hunt. But I can't stop thinking about you. The admission cracked something open in me, a vulnerability I'd armored against since high school whispers and locker room taunts. I reached for his hand, lacing our fingers in the gathering dusk, the sand cool beneath us. Then don't. We kissed there, slow and deep, the salt air mingling with the taste of him, and for the first time, it felt like possibility, not peril. But as we drove back, the city lights smearing like tears on the windshield, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were building on borrowed time. Weeks slipped by in that hazy limbo, our friendship morphing into something sharper, more alive, threaded with the thrill of secrecy. Morning started with his texts, simple things like coffee run, that masked the ache behind them, and I'd find myself grinning at my phone amid the steam of the espresso machine, ignoring the sidelong glances from my coworker Mia, who sensed the shift but said nothing. Seattle's rhythm pulsed around us, the ferry horns echoing from the docks, the perpetual drizzle a veil that hid our stolen glances in crowded cafes. Alex's apartment became our sanctuary, those exposed brick walls witnessing fumbling explorations after Sarah's yoga classes ran late. We'd start with beers on the balcony, the bay a glittering expanse below, talking about everything from quantum mechanics to the latest indie flick at the SIFF theater. But inevitably, the space between us would shrink, his hand finding mine, pulling me inside where the world couldn't touch us. The first time we went further than kisses, it was after a Mariners game, the stadium's roar still buzzing in our veins as we tumbled through his door, laughing at a botched double play. Clothes shed in a trail from the entryway, his skin warm and unfamiliar under my palms, mapping freckles across his shoulders like constellations I'd only dreamed of. It was awkward at edges, elbows knocking, breaths hitching in uncertainty, but the rawness of it bound us tighter, his whispers against my neck a litany of my name that echoed long after. "I never thought it'd feel like this," he murmured one night, our bodies tangled in sheets that smelled of salt and him, the city hum a distant lullaby. His fingers traced lazy patterns on my back, and I pressed closer, savoring the weight of his confession. Me neither. Truth was, I'd questioned myself for years, the pull toward men a quiet storm I dismissed as phase or fantasy. But with Alex, it crystallized, sharp and undeniable, a piece slotting into place amid the chaos of my 20s. Yet doubt crept in with the daylight. Sarah's presence was a specter, her Instagram stories popping up like reminders, brunch dates in Ballard, hikes up Rattlesnake Ledge with captions about forever vibes. Alex brushed it off, saying they were drifting, that he'd end it soon, but the words rang hollow, laced with the fear I'd seen in his eyes that first night. We navigated the minefield carefully, sticking to bro codes in public, high fives at the gym, inside jokes over wings at the pub. But the tension built, a pressure cooker of sidelong looks and brushed-off invitations. One afternoon, during a pickup basketball game at the Fremont courts, sweat-slick and breathless, he fouled me hard, our bodies colliding in a tangle that left us both hard and hidden under baggy shorts. "Sorry," he panted, but his grin was wolfish, and later, in the showers, separate stalls this time, the water couldn't drown the memory. My own life frayed at the edges. The startup gig ramped up, deadlines blurring into all-nighters fueled by Red Bull and regret, while the coffee shop shifts drained what energy remained. Nights alone in my studio, the walls closing in, I'd scroll through Grindry profiles, thumb hovering over delete, wondering if this was all I'd get, fragments of Alex amid the grind of rent checks and existential dread. Then came the weekend getaway, a whim born of cabin fever. "Cabin in the Cascades," he texted, attaching a link to a VRBO listing near Leavenworth, all pine-scented isolation and no cell service to speak of. Sarah was out of town for a retreat, he said, and the relief in his voice was palpable. I booked it on impulse, heart racing at the promise of uninterrupted us. The drive up was a revelation, winding through evergreens heavy with mist, the radio flipping between Pearl Jam and Static. We sang off-key, windows down, the chill nipping at our skin, and for hours, it felt free, like we'd outrun the complications. The cabin was rustic charm, stone fireplace, lofted bed overlooking a deck that backed onto whispering woods, a hot tub bubbling under star-pricked skies. That first night, fire crackling, we cooked steaks on the grill, the sizzle mingling with laughter as he recounted a disastrous family Thanksgiving involving his abuela's tamales and a tipsy uncle's karaoke. I shared stories of my sister's wedding last summer, the way the small-town church had felt like a cage, all pearl clutches and knowing glances when I'd shown up solo. "You deserve someone who sees you," he said softly, handing me a glass of Cabernet, his eyes holding mine over the flame. Later, in the hot tub, steam rising like our breaths, barriers dissolved. Water lapped at our bare skin, his leg pressed against mine, and when he leaned in, it was with a certainty that stole my air. We moved to the loft, the wooden beams creaking under our rhythm, bodies sinking in a dance of rediscovery. It was tender, fierce, his hands learning me like Braille, and in the afterglow, curled against him, the forest's hush felt like absolution. But morning brought clarity's cruel edge. Over coffee on the deck, deer grazing in the meadow below, he grew quiet, staring into his mug. It's real, right? Not just escape." I set my cup down, reaching for his hand. It's real. But what about when we get back? He sighed, the sound heavy with the weight of unspoken loyalties. I'll talk to Sarah. I promise. We hiked that day, trails crunching under boots, the air crisp with pine and earth, pausing at overlooks where the valleys unfolded like green promises. At a secluded waterfall, mist veiling the cascade, he pulled me close, kissing me with a desperation that bordered on farewell. I love this, he breathed. Love you in this. The words hung, unclaimed, but they lodged in my chest, a fragile hope amid the roar of water. Back in the city, the bubble burst slowly. Sarah's return meant cancelled plans, excuses piling like autumn leaves. I'd catch glimpses of them at a brewpub in Belltown, her arm looped through his, and the sight twisted like a knife, jealousy mingling with the shame of wanting what wasn't mine. Alex texted apologies, late-night confessions that kept the flame flickering, but the distance grew, a chasm widening with each dodged question. One rainy Tuesday, after a double shift that left me bone-tired, I showed up at his door unannounced, the downpour soaking through my hoodie. He opened it, surprise flickering to guilt as Sarah's laughter echoed from the living room. Hunt? What? Can we talk? My voice cracked, rain dripping from my hair, pooling at our feet. He stepped out, closing the door soft behind him, the clicker barrier. Not now, man. She's here. The dismissal stung, sharper than the cold. When, then? This half-life is killing me. His jaw tightened, eyes darting to the window where her silhouette moved. Soon. I swear. I walked home in the deluge, streets empty save for the occasional cab slashing yellow through the gloom, my mind a torrent of recriminations. Was I the other man now? The secret shame? The questions looped, eroding the joy we'd carved out. At work the next day, Mia cornered me during lull, her piercings glinting under the fluorescence. You look like hell, Ellis. Spill. I hesitated, then let it tumble, the locker room, the cabin, the limbo. She listened, nodding, her expression softening. Sounds like he's scared. But you? Don't let fear write your story. Her words lingered, a seed of resolve amid the ache. That night, I drafted a text to Alex, we need to define this, or end it. But I hit send on a meme instead, the coward's deferral. The fracture deepened over falafel at a Queen and Spot, our knees touching under the table, conversation skirting the edges. He talked about a promotion, the stability it promised, but his eyes were elsewhere, haunted. Dad called, he admitted. Wants me to meet his colleague's daughter. Time to think legacy, he says. The casual drop landed like a gut punch. And you? He shrugged, fork pushing chickpeas around his plate. I don't know. It's all so. Expected. Expected. The word encapsulated it, the script we'd both been handed, straight lines and safe harbors, while this, us, was the detour into wilds. I wanted to rage, to demand he burn it all, but instead, I squeezed his hand under the table, brief and fierce. Expectations are just stories we tell ourselves. He smiled, faint, but it didn't reach his eyes. Later, in the parking lot, rain sheeting down, he kissed me hard against the car, a promise or a plea, I couldn't tell. Give me time, he murmured. Time. It stretched, elastic and unforgiving, as autumn deepened into November's chill. Leaves skittered across sidewalks like discarded intentions, and I threw myself into routines, long runs along the locks where salmon leaped against the current, open mics at the Tractor Tavern where I'd scribble lyrics about unspoken loves. Friends noticed the strain, inviting me to house parties in Wallingford, but I demur, citing work, the lie a shield. One evening, nursing a whiskey at the Rusty Anchor, the jukebox crooning Springsteen, my phone buzzed. Sarah knows something's up. Fight tonight. My stomach dropped, fingers flying, what happened? She found texts. Old ones. From you. The bar's warmth turned cloying, the chatter a roar. I typed, deleted, typed again, tell her the truth. His reply came after an eternity, I can't. Not yet. The not yet was a dagger, twisting slow. I paid my tab, stepped into the night where fog rolled off the bay like smoke from a dying fire, and walked until my legs burned, the city a blur of lights and loss. Home was no refuge, the empty studio echoing with ghosts of laughter, so I called Mia, her voice a lifeline in the dark. "Come over," she said. "Wine and bad movies." Her place in Green Lake was a haven of plants and vinyl records, and as we dissected rom-coms with cynicism born of experience, she pulled no punches. "He's stringing you along, Hunt. Love isn't half measures." I knew she was right, the knowledge a bitter pill, but admitting it meant letting go, and that terrified me more than the limbo. Still, as I lay awake that night, the lake's gentle lap outside her window, a decision crystallized: I deserved whole, not fragments. The confrontation came unbidden, a Thursday after gym, the locker room a minefield of memories. He was there, toweling off, back to me, and I couldn't hold it in. "We can't keep doing this." He turned, water beading on his chest, eyes wide. "Hunt." "No." I stepped closer, voice low, the echo of lockers amplifying the tremble. "You're choosing her. Every time." "It's not that simple." Pain etched his features, mirroring mine. "My family, the job, everything's tied to this image." "Then break it." The words hung, a challenge. He reached for me, but I stepped back, the distance a chasm. "I need you to decide." "For real?" He nodded, throat working, and left without another word, the door swinging shut like a finality. Days passed in radio silence, the void a physical ache. Work blurred, runs turned punishing, and Seattle's grey seemed to seep into my bones. Then, late one night, my phone lit up, "Meet me. Pier 86. Now." The waterfront was desolate, gulls wheeling under sodium lamps, the Olympic Mountains ghosts in the mist. He waited by the railing, hands gripping the metal, face drawn. I told her. My heart stuttered. "And?" "It's over. With her. With the lies." He turned, eyes fierce. "I choose us." Relief crashed over me, and I pulled him close, the salt wind whipping around us, our kiss a seal on fragile vows. But even as joy bloomed, a whisper of doubt lingered. What storms would this unleash? Winter clamped down on Seattle like a vice, the days shortening to slivers of light pierced by relentless gray, mirroring the tentative thaw in our bond. With Sarah excised, Alex moved through the aftermath like a man shedding skin, raw and renewed. Her things vanished from his apartment in boxes hauled to storage, her key surrendered with a finality that left echoes in the halls. We filled the spaces slowly, my toothbrush migrating to his bathroom counter, take-out containers piling in shared sinks, the domesticity a quiet revolution against the solitude I'd known. Mornings became ritual, his alarm pulling us from tangled sheets, coffee brewing as we leaned against granite counters, trading sleepy kisses amid the hiss of the machine. He'd leave for Boeing-in pressed chinos, me for the shop in hoodies frayed at the cuffs, but the texts flowed constant: "Miss your face already," or "That customer just ordered a unicorn frap, save me," anchors in the daily drift. Publicly, we played it cautious, the city's progressive pulse notwithstanding, Capitol Hill's rainbow flags fluttered defiant, but old habits died hard, whispers of judgment a spectre from upbringing. We'd meet at neutral grounds, the Elliott Bay Book Company for poetry readings, where he'd slip his hand into mine under the stacks, or Alki Beach for sunset jogs, the skyline a distant promise. Each touch felt like defiance, a reclaiming of space we'd ceded to fear. But freedom bred its own tensions. His family loomed larger now, holidays approaching like thunderheads. Christmas meant Tacoma, his parents' craftsman home with its obligatory tamale feasts and his father's pointed questions about prospects. Alex confided over late-night drives along Aurora Avenue, neon motels flickering past. Dad's old school, Army vet, Catholic guilt baked in. Mom's softer, but even she asks about grandkids. I squeezed his thigh, the leather wheel creaking under his grip. "You don't owe them your truth." "Not all at once." He glanced over, streetlights carving shadows on his face. "But I want to. For us." The words warmed, but unease stirred. My own family was a chasm, Spokane conservatives who'd voted red and prayed harder when I'd come out in halting emails last year, their replies polite frost. We're proud of you, son. Just pray on it. No visit since, the distance a mercy and a wound. We planned our own haven, Thanksgiving at a friend's potluck in Finney Ridge, a queer-inclusive affair with turkey and tofurkey, board games escalating to truth or dare hilarity. Mia hosted, her loft strung with lights, and there, amid laughter and pie, Alex's arm around my shoulders felt natural, unremarked. A guy named Theo, lanky with a photographer's eye, cornered me by the charcuterie. You two are cute. How long? I shrugged, warmth spreading. Feels like forever. That night, back at his place, the high lingered, our lovemaking slow and reverent, bodies mapping familiar territories with fresh wonder. This is it, he whispered, breath hot against my collarbone. Building something real. But crack spiderweb beneath the surface. Work pressures mounted, his promotion meant longer hours, classified projects that left him drained, snapping at small things like forgotten laundry. I'd absorb it, chalking to stress, but resentment simmered, unspoken. Then came the betrayal's first whisper, innocuous as a misplaced email. I was at his desk, borrowing a charger, when his laptop pinged open to a thread with Sarah. We need to talk, she'd written months back. I know about Hunter. His reply, it's nothing. A phase. Please, let's fix us. The words blurred, a punch to the solar plexus. Phase. Nothing. I slammed the lid, heart hammering, and when he got home, dinner cooling on the stove, I couldn't mask the storm. You called us nothing. The accusation hung, plate clattering to the counter. He paled, eyes flicking to the screen. Hunt, that was before. Before what? Before you dumped her? Or before you convinced yourself it was real? Voice rising despite the no-shouting rule we'd half-joked about, the room shrank. He reached for me, desperate. I was scared. Protecting what we had. By lying to her? To me. I paced, the rug muffling steps, betrayal a live wire. You strung her a long while. Stop. He blocked my path, hands on my arms, grip firm. I ended it. Chose you. Isn't that enough? Tears pricked, hot and unwelcome. It hurts. Knowing I was the secret shame. We collapsed onto the couch, his head in my lap, apologies tumbling like rain on tin. I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. I stroked his hair, forgiveness warring with the bruise, and eventually, exhaustion won, sleep claiming us in uneasy truce. The incident lingered, a shadow at edges, but we pushed forward, therapy apps downloaded, honest talks over brunches at La Peña, croissants flaking as we dissected fears. He opened up about boyhood crushes on teammates, buried under football pads and frat boy facades. I confessed the grindry nights, the loneliness that clawed. Christmas neared, and the family gauntlet loomed. He invited me to Tacoma, a bold step, and I accepted, nerves jangling like loose change. The drive south was tense, evergreens giving way to strip malls, his knuckles white on the wheel. Just be you, he said, but his smile was strained. The house was festooned, lights twinkling on a Douglas fir, nativity scene glowing on the lawn. His parents greeted with hugs, Mrs. Rivera warm with spiced cider, Mr. Rivera gruff but kind, clapping my back. Heard you're in tech. Good man. Dinner was a minefield of grace and grilling, jobs, weather, the girl from work who'd caught Alex's eye, a deflection that made me choke on mashed potatoes. Under the table, his foot nudged mine, a lifeline, and I nodded through it, the charade exhausting. Later, in his boyhood room, posters faded, twin bed creaking under us, he buried his face in my neck. That was hell. But you did it. I kissed his temple, pride mingling with pity. One step. New Year's brought renewal, a party at Mia's with countdowns and champagne flutes. We kissed at midnight, confetti raining, the room erupting in cheers, and for a moment, it felt invincible. Spring teased with crocuses pushing through pavement cracks, our rhythm steadying. We adopted a rescue mutt, Luna, a wiry terrier with separation anxiety that mirrored our own, walks along Green Lake becoming therapy. Dates evolved, a weekend in Portland, rain-slick streets and food carts, holding hands in Powell's without a flinch. But the past resurfaced in May, Sarah's email landing like shrapnel. So you too at the market. Happy for you. But he lied to me for months. Attached, screenshots of texts, his words twisting the knife deeper. I confronted him at work, storming Boeing's visitor lot, security eyeing me wary. She reached out. Says you gaslit her. His face crumpled, hard hat in hand. I was trying to let her down easy. Protect her. Or protect yourself. The words lashed, and I walked away, the Space Needle mocking from afar. Reconciliation took weeks, couples counseling in a Belltown office with a therapist named Jordan who dissected our patterns with surgical calm. Trust rebuilds in actions, he said, and Alex proved it, open phones, family intros planned. Summer bloomed, pride a riot of color down Broadway, rainbows reclaiming streets. We marched, hands linked, the crowd a sea of solidarity, and in the throng, Alex shouted over bass, I love you. The declaration freed something, and our nights deepened, love a language we spoke fluent. Yet autumn circled back, leaves turning, and with them, a new shadow, his father's health scare, a heart episode that summoned the family. In the hospital's sterile hum, Mr. Rivera gripped Alex's hand, rasping, make me proud, son. Legacy. The word haunted, and Alex withdrew, cool sparse, touches hesitant. He's dying, he said one night, voice breaking. And I can't tell him this. Guilt gnawed, my presence a complication. You don't have to. But don't erase us. He nodded, but the fracture widened, hospital visits pulling him away, my shifts filling voids. One evening, returning from a solo hike in Discovery Park, ferns brushing calves, I found him on the balcony, staring at the sound. I can't breathe, he admitted. All this pressure. I held him, the city sprawling below, but doubt crept, was love enough against Legacy's weight? October brought the storm, rain lashing windows as we argued in the kitchen, dishes clattering. You're pulling away. I accused. I'm drowning, he shot back. Dad's chemo starts Monday. I need space. Space. The word echoed the locker room, the early days, and I packed a bag, crashing at Mia's, the lake a black mirror outside. Days blurred into a chasm, texts polite frost. Then, a call, Dad knows. My heart seized. How? Sarah. She told him. Everything. The revelation crashed, and I raced to the hospital, corridors blurring, finding Alex in the waiting room, face ashen. He wants to see you. Mr. Rivera lay frail, monitors beeping, but his eyes were steel. You hurt my boy. No, sir. Voice steady, I met his gaze. I love him. He studied me, then nodded faint. Good. Don't let him run. The absolution shifted tides, and in the aftermath, Alex clung tighter, chemo rounds endured with my hand in his. I'm done hiding, he vowed. Winter thawed into tentative spring, our bond forged stronger in fire, but the scars remained, reminders that love was work, relentless and raw. The chemo cycles etched lines on Alex's face deeper than the city's fog could hide, each treatment a gauntlet of nausea and resolve that tested our fragile equilibrium. I'd drive him to Swedish Medical Center, the Seattle skyline a stoic sentinel through rain-streaked windows, holding his hand as Fours dripped poison meant to heal. Waiting rooms became our limbo, dog-eared magazines and vending machine coffee our companions, where he'd lean on my shoulder, whispering fears amid the coughs of strangers. You're my rock, he'd say, voice thin, and I'd press lips to his temple, tasting salt of sweat and unspoken dread. Home after, Luna nosing at his feet, we'd collapse into bed, my arms a bulwark against the chills that racked him. Nights blurred into caretaking, broth simmered on the stove, episodes of The Office queued for distraction, laughter forced but genuine in flickers. His mother's visits brought warmth laced with tension, her rosary beads clicking as she bustled in with pozole, eyes flicking between us with a mix of gratitude and bewilderment. "You're good for him, Hunter," she'd murmur, patting my cheek, but the undercurrent of tradition lingered, her prayers a soft plea for normalcy. Mr. Rivera's acceptance held, gruff nods during bedside chats, stories of Vietnam spilling like confessions, but frailty stripped pretenses, leaving raw edges. One afternoon, tube snaking from his arm, he fixed me with a stare. "Promise me you'll fight for him. Life's too short for half-assed." "I promise," I replied, throat tight, the weight settling like ballast. Yet strain seeped into cracks. My own world tilted, coffee shop promotions dangled, but exhaustion dulled ambition, code bugs at the startup multiplying unchecked. Friends rallied, Mia dropping off meals with pep talks, Theo snapping candid photos to capture our resilience. "You're warriors," he'd say, lens clicking, but mirrors showed hollow cheeks, the toll invisible but indelible. Alex's vulnerability bred closeness, our intimacy a refuge of gentle touches, exploration slowed to savor what chemo stole. "I feel broken," he'd confess, body curled against mine, and I'd trace scars both seen and unseen, whispering, "You're whole to me." Spring unfurled tentative, cherry blossoms dusting Capitol Hill like fleeting hope, and scans brought news, remission, cautious but real. Celebrations were quiet, a picnic at Gas Works Park, kites dancing over rusting relics, Luna chasing shadows. We toasted with local cider, his laugh ringing true for the first time in months, hand squeezing mine. We made it. But survival unearthed buried mines. Sarah re-emerged, not in malice but necessity, a shared lease dispute forcing contact, emails civil but probing. "How's Alex? Tell him I forgive." The words should have soothed, but they ignited old embers, Alex's jaw clenching over dinner. "She pities us. Or she's healing." I reached across the table, but he pulled back, eyes stormy. "Healing?" She outed me to my dad out of spite. The accusation hung, and I tread careful. Spite or closure? Doesn't change us. It did, though, subtly, a wariness in his glances, doors closing firmer. Work pulled him deeper into projects, overtime bleeding into weekends, our evenings reduced to texts and takeout. Deadline crunch, he'd explain, collapsing late, but the distance yawned, a familiar ache. I filled voids with solo pursuits, pottery classes in Fremont, clay cool under fingers, shaping vessels from chaos, runs turning meditative, pounding pavement past the troll under the bridge. Mia dragged me to a queer book club, pages of Audre Lorde stirring reflections on love's labors, and there, amid discussions, I voiced the unrest. "It's like we're orbiting, not landing." She nodded, sage. "Talk. Before resentment builds walls." The talk came explosive, a Friday after his shift, rain hammering the roof like accusations. I waited with stir-fry cooling, words primed. "You're slipping away again." He dropped his bag, exhaustion etching brows. "I'm here, Hunt. Just surviving." "Surviving isn't living. With me." Voice cracking, I gestured wide. "This, us, feels like obligation now." His eyes flashed, hurt mirroring mine. "Obligation? After everything?" "After chemo, yeah. But you're shutting me out." Tears welled, unbidden. "I need all of you, not scraps." He paced, hands raking hair. "I don't know how. Dad's better, but the fear. It's in me now." We sank to the floor, backs to cabinets, truth spilling. He admitted the terror of recurrence, how it made permanence feel illusory. I confessed burnout, the caretaker role eclipsing myself. "I love you," I said, fierce. "But I need to breathe too." Dawn found us entwined on the rug, resolutions tentative, date nights enforced, therapy resumed solo for him, boundaries drawn like maps. Renewal bloomed uneven, summer's heatwave a novelty that drew us to Discovery Park beaches, sand warm under towels, Luna splashing in shallows. We grilled salmon on the deck, neighbors' barbecues a chorus, his stories loosening, boyhood dreams of piloting, now channeled into designs. Maybe we travel, he mused, fork-spearing asparagus. See the world unscripted. The idea ignited, and we booked tickets, a road trip down the Oregon coast, escaping urban tether. Packing was chaos, duffels stuffed with swimsuits and snacks, excitement bubbling as we hit I-5 South, windows down, indie playlists shuffling. Cannon Beach welcomed with haystack rock looming, tide pools teeming, our hands linked on driftwood logs as seals barked offshore. Nights in Astoria motels, neon buzzing, led to slow dances in cramped rooms, bodies rediscovering rhythm. This is us, he whispered, lips on my shoulder, waves crashing distant. Vulnerability peaked one evening at Echola State Park, overlook sweeping to horizon, where he knelt, not proposal, but plea. Marry me? Someday. When we're ready. Tears blurred the vista, joy pure. Someday. Portland Dieter brought foodie indulgences, voodoo donuts sticky-sweet, Powell's shelves a labyrinth, and queer bars pulsing with bass, where we danced unself-conscious, sweat-slick and free. Back north, the trip wove us tighter, resentments dissolving in saltwater and sun. Fall returned, leaves carpeting paths, and life resumed with vigor. His promotion landed, corner office with bay views, celebrations at the Metropolitan Grill, steaks rare and toasts effusive. My startup pivoted, a feature launch earning kudos, confidence surging. We hosted game nights, friends crowding the apartment, lunar underfoot, laughter echoing. Yet harmony harbored undercurrents. His father's recovery demanded presence, weekend drives to Tacoma laced with duty, my tag-along status evolving to family fold. Mrs. Rivera embraced, teaching me empanada folds, but Mr. Rivera's recovery sharpened edges, his recovery a mirror to Alex's internal battles. One November Eve, post-Thanksgiving haze, he confessed over pie remnants. Dad asked about wedding bells. For real? I paused, fork midway. And? I told him yes. You? Pride swelled, but his eyes shadowed. But work's offering a transfer. DC 6 months. The offer landed soft, but seismic. DC? Temporary. Policy gig, big impact. Excitement tempered caution. Come with? Or wait? Choice loomed, my roots in Seattle deep, friends, gigs, the rain-swept familiarity. I need to think. Tension simmered, holidays a tightrope of cheer masking fracture. Christmas in Tacoma was fuller, lights twinkling, but my mind wandered east, monument stark against the pool west. New Year's at home, countdown ticking, we clinked glasses, but the kiss held hesitation. Decide with me, he urged. I will. But fear gripped, was this growth or goodbye? January brought crossroads, his departure date looming, packing boxes a spectre. I weighed options, sublet my studio, remote work fragile, and chose, I'll visit. But Seattle's home. Disappointment flickered, but he nodded. Then we make it work. Airport farewell was agony, his gait receding, my hand slipping from his. Texts bridged miles, miss the rain-countered snow here, thinking of you, but distance amplified doubts, calls crackling with static unspoken. Months stretched, DC's cherry blossoms mocking isolation. Visits punctuated, me east for spring, monuments marble cold, his tiny apartment a nest of takeout and talks. This sucks, he'd admit, curled on futon. Summer saw him west, Boeing bridging, our reunion fervent, bodies reclaiming lost time. But cracks widened, his new circle corporate stiff, mentions of colleagues laced ambiguity. A photo on his feed, arm around a guy named Jordan from work, caption innocuous, but jealousy flared. Confrontation via video, screens between. Who's he? Friend. Nothing. Defensiveness sharpened. Trust me. I do. But this distance. Return in fall healed surface, but residue lingered, trust a mended vase, fragile. Winter deepened, holidays split, me Spokane, polite estrangement, him Tacoma, deepening bonds. Reunion brought fire, but embers of doubt smoldered. Then, the blow, a late-night call, voice slurred. Hunt? I met someone. The word shattered, airport pickup forgotten. What? Brief. Stupid. I'm sorry. Sobs choked. The loneliness. Betrayal crested, hot and vast. You chose DC. Now this. Hanging up, I drove through sleet, home a void. Days blurred, Mia's couch refuge, anger cycling grief. He returned contrite, airport knees begging. One mistake. Please. Forgiveness ward, love's tether straining. Why? Fear. Of losing you to miles. Tears tracked. But I can't lose us. We rebuilt, slower, therapy bridging, but scar tissue toughened, resilience born. Spring healed, DC declined, home solid. Love, tested, endured, deeper, wiser. The betrayal's aftershocks rippled through our days like seismic waves, subtle at first, then crashing with force that left us reeling on the shores of what remained. Alex returned from DC a ghost of the man who'd left, suitcases thumping hollow in the hall, his eyes pleading circles under fluorescent airport lights. I picked him up out of duty laced with dread, the drive home a minefield of silence broken only by wipers slapping rain from the windshield, Seattle's lights smearing into accusations. That night, in the apartment we'd fought to reclaim, he unpacked not clothes but confessions, sitting cross-legged on the bed amid scattered socks and ties. It was one night. A bar near the office, after a team dinner. Too many whiskeys, and he was there, sympathetic, easy. His voice cracked, hands twisting sheets. I woke up hating myself. I leaned against the dresser, arms crossed like armor, the mirror reflecting a stranger's hollow gaze. Easy. That's what I was? Before the miles? No. He lunged forward, grasping my knees, face upturned. You were everything. This was escape, stupid and selfish. Forgive me. The plea twisted, lover not tightening with rage. Memories flooded, the cabin's hot tub, his someday vow, chemo nights I'd held him through fever dreams. You broke us, I whispered, voice raw. For what? To feel less alone. Tears carved paths down his cheeks, and he nodded, broken. Yes. And it made it worse. We didn't touch that night, Luna's wine the only bridge, curling between us on the couch where sleep evaded in fits. Dawn crept grey, coffee bitter on tongues, and we talked, endless, excavating the rot. He admitted the distance had amplified insecurities, DC's anonymity a siren's call, whispers of what if turning to actions he'd regret eternal. I voiced the terror of inadequacy, the locker room gaze now tainted by doubt, was I ever enough, or just convenient? Therapy became sacrament, Jordan's office a confessional where we dissected the fracture. Betrayal erodes foundation, he noted, glasses perched, but choice rebuilds. Homework, daily check-ins, no screens after 8, vulnerability exercises that left us stripped bare. Raintree was glacial. Workdays dragged, my shifts at the shop a blur of orders masking turmoil, customers chatter white noise. Alex dove into Boeing routines, but lunches became ours, picnics in Kerry Park, skyline framing confessions over sandwiches. I see it now, he'd say, hand over mine on checkered blanket. How I pushed you away to avoid my own mess. Healing threaded slow, autumn leaves a metaphor for shedding, old patterns, grudges molting into growth. We volunteered at a queer youth center in Capitol Hill, facilitating art workshops where teens sketched identities unchained, their courage a mirror to our stumbles. One boy, 16 and wide-eyed, shared his coming-out scars, and Alex's arm tightened around me, whisper fierce, we're lucky. Winter holidays tested, Spokane a reluctant pilgrimage where my parents' dinner held veiled probes, seeing anyone special. My nod to Alex met with tight smiles. As long as you're happy, dear. Back home, Tacoma embraced fuller, Mr. Rivera's health steadied, his toast at Christmas Eve, to family, blood and chosen. The words landed, inclusive, and I clinked glasses, belonging tentative but real. New Year's we rang in private, rooftop at his building, city sprawl a canvas of fireworks blooming like hopes renewed. His kiss at midnight was apology and anchor, body pressing close against chill wind. This year, only us. Spring coaxed blooms, our rhythm sinking anew, farmers' markets in Ballard, baskets brimming berries, kisses stolen behind stalls. Intimacy reignited, tentative then torrent, bodies relearning trust in dim bedrooms, his touches reverent, mine forgiving. But crisis crested unbidden, a Friday in May when Mia called, voice-edged, Alex is at the ER. Car accident. The world tilted, coffee spilling as I bolted, streets a hazard of lights and horns, heart slamming. Swedish halls echoed my panic, finding him in a curtained bay, arm in sling, bruises blooming purple on jaw. Idiot merge on 99, he grimaced, but eyes lit seeing me. I'm okay. Whiplash mostly. Relief crashed, knees buckling, and I gripped his good hand, tears hot. Don't scare me like that. In the sterile wait for discharge, vulnerability peaked. Seeing you wrecked. It hit me, I confessed. Life's fragile. We almost lost this. He nodded, pain med slurring soft. Then hold tighter. Recovery bound us, me playing nurse with ice packs and soups, Luna guarding his feet. Nights, with stream documentaries on resilience, queer icons like Harvey Milk, their fights fueling ours. We're survivors, he'd say, head on my lap, and I'd weave fingers through hair, affirming. Summer sweltered rare, drawing us to San Juan Island's ferry, bike rentals on Lopez, windswept paths to secluded coves. There, on a beach of pebbles, waves lapping ankles, he dropped a knee again, ring simple silver. Marry me. Now. For real. Joy surged, yes tumbling free, salt spray mingling tears. Planning ensued, small ceremony in Volunteer Park, friends witnesses under ancient cedars. Fall wedding was poetry, mere officiating, vows exchanged in golden light. Alex's I choose you, every fracture drawing gasps. Reception at a Fremont brewery, toasts raucous, dances swaying to local bands. Honeymoon in the Olympics, cabin redux, hikes to Solduc Falls, hot spring soaking aches away. Forever starts here, he murmured, steam veiling us. Return brought domestic bliss, merged leases, joint accounts, Luna's bed by hours. But bliss bred complacency, routine's dulling edges. His promotion demanded travel, short hops to LA, my coding freelance allowing flexibility, but absences chafed. One October trip, delayed return sparked paranoia, old betrayal ghosting. Texts lagged, and when he landed, my hug held interrogation. Everything good? He sensed, brow furrowing. Yeah. Why? Just. Miss you. Lie masked fear, but it festered, therapy dredging, trust's muscle, use it. Winter deepened, holidays a loop of joy-laced caution. Then, crisis redux, Mr. Rivera's relapse, scans grim, pulling Alex south weekly. I tagged, support steady, but exhaustion mounted, my world shrinking to ferries and chemo chairs. One night, hotel in Tacoma, he broke, I can't watch him fade again. I held him, sobs racking. You won't alone. Spring brought decline, hospice whispers, family vigil. Mr. Rivera's passing was quiet, room heavy with beeps fading to silence, Alex's hand in his till end. Funeral rain-soaked, eulogy Alex's voice steady, he taught strength. And love, in all forms. Grief hollowed, but wove us closer, memorials shared, ashes scattered at point defiance, waves claiming. Summer healed slow, grief's tendrils loosening in garden plots we tended, tomatoes ripening red as resolve. Travel beckoned, a Greece jaunt, islands whitewashed, Aegean blues washing wounds. Fall anchored, routines rooted, love matured, less fire, more hearth. Winter closed, holidays honoring absence with presence, toasts to legacies lived. Through it, we endured, betrayal scar a testament, love, chosen daily, unbreakable. Grief for Mr. Rivera settled into our bones like Seattle's perennial damp, a quiet undercurrent that colored days without drowning them. Alex moved through it with a stoicism inherited, mornings sharp-suited for Boeing, evenings unraveling in my arms, stories of his father spilling like libations, fishing trips on Commencement Bay, lessons in knot tying that doubled as life's metaphors. He'd have liked you steady, he'd murmur, head on my chest, heartbeat sinking to mine. We honored him in small rites, annual drives to Tacoma for tamale nights with Mrs. Rivera, her kitchen a haven of flour-dusted counters and laughter-edged soft. Luna adopted her as pack, tail wagging furious at visits, and in those spaces, family expanded, my Spokane ties thawing via video calls where mom's how's the weather, masked warming curiosity about that nice Alex. Healing's path wound personal, Alex seeking grief groups at the center, circles of shared loss where he'd return lighter, insights pocketed. Talking it out. It's like exhaling, he'd say, and I'd nod, my own therapy delving jealousy's roots, unearthing boyhood shames that echoed in betrayals past. Summer post-loss bloomed resilient, a road trip east to Glacier National Park, Montana's wilds a balm. We hiked going to the Sun Road, switchbacks climbing to vistas vast, air pine-sharp, where at Logan Pass, wind-whipped, he scattered a pinch of ashes into alpine air. Go explore, Dad. The act freed, our hands clasped over wildflower meadows, bodies later tangled in tent under star-pricked skies, love a fierce anchor against void. Return invigorated, careers surging, his designs greenlit for a new jet prototype, celebrations with team beers at Pyramid Brewery, my freelance coding birthing an app for queer mental health check-ins, beta-tested with center friends, downloads ticking hope. We poured profits into home, a queen and fixer-upper, creaky Victorian with bay views, weekend sanding floors sweat slick, paint-splattered kisses amid drop cloths. Domesticity deepened, routines a tapestry, shared gym sessions at the Y, weights clanging as we spotted, showers post-lingering steamy, cooking classes in Pike Place, knives flashing through salmon, herbs fragrant. Dates evolved poetic, sunset sails on the bay, sails billowing, his arm around waist as seals trailed, open-air concerts at Chiguli Garden, glass sculptures glowing ethereal. Yet undercurrent stirred, autumn's chill heralding introspection. Alex's 40th loomed distant but insistent, whispers of legacy echoing his father's. Kids, he broached one leaf-strewn walk in Green Lake, ducks quacking indifferent. Surrogacy, maybe. The question landed gentle, but seismic, my own fears of fatherhood tangled in conservative upbringings, the what-ifs of raising queer in a world still sharp. Maybe, I echoed, squeezing hand. When ready. Winter wrapped us cozy, holidays a mosaic, Christmas tree strung with heirloom ornaments, Mrs. Rivera's luminarias glowing on stoop, New Year's cabin retreat in Snoqualmie, snow blanketing, hot cocoa steaming as we dreamed aloud, adoptions, travels, grey hairs entwined. Spring unearthed unrest, a work conference in San Francisco pulling me south, Moscone Center buzzing with tech evangelists. Panels on AI ethics droned, but networking sparked, a collaborator named Riley, sharp-minded coder with easy banter, late drinks at a Castro bar turning flirtatious, his laugh a spark in sterile halls. Guilt gnawed return flight, Alex's airport hug pure, but confession brewed. Over dinner at Carnley's, skyline twinkling, words tumbled, met someone interesting. Nothing happened, but the pull. He stilled, fork pausing. Pull. Flirtation. Old patterns. Honesty's blade cut, but freed. I shut it down. Chose us. Pain flickered, then resolve. Good. Because I'd fight for this. Talk turned inward, vulnerabilities aired, his DC slip, my conference spark, as equals, not victims. Resolution strengthened, summer a forge, couples retreat in the San Juans, workshops on communication amid kayaks slicing Salish Sea. Evenings bonfires crackling, marshmallows gooey, with map futures, tattoos inked matching, compass roses on wrists, pointing true. Fall brought harvest, our garden yielding zucchini bountiful, pies baked for neighbors, community rooting. But crisis crested subtle, Alex's promotion interview, DC Redux, a year-long liaison in the capital. We'd manage, he urged, resume polished. Video dates, visits. Doubt crested, homes pull visceral, Luna's wags, Mrs. Rivera's calls, my app's launch party pending. Last time nearly broke us. He nodded, withdrawing application next dawn, relief palpable. You're right. Here. Winter's hush allowed reflection, holidays intimate, Spokane visit where parents met him formal, dinner tense thawing to toasts, mom's he seems kind the milestone. New year dawn committed, resolutions etched, weekly adventures, no work post sunset. Spring kayaking in the Sound, AUKUS breaching distant, mirrored our sink. Yet personal storm brewed for me, app success drawing investor offers, relocation temptations to Silicon Valley. Bay Area, a suit pitched over lunch in Belltown, big leagues. Alex's eyeshadow dinner that eve. Go if it calls. But it didn't, not without him. We build here. Summer sealed, app thriving local, his jet prototype soaring test flights, pride shared at air shows, crowds oohing as it cut skies. Fall anchored, routine sacred. One crisp eve, volunteer park conservatory humid with orchids, he knelt anew. Renew? Vows yearly. Laughter bubbled, yes fervent. Ceremony small, friends circling palms, words reaffirmed. Winter closed gentle, snow rare dusting evergreens, holidays woven with memories, Mr. Rivera's stories retold, legacies lived. Through trials, we mended, love a garden tended diligent, blooming defiant. Healing's arc curved toward wholeness, betrayals alchemized to wisdom, crises to clarity. We stood, intertwined, against tempests, roots deep in this rainy city that mirrored our depths. The years folded upon themselves like the pleats of an accordion, expanding and contracting with the breath of life, our shared rhythm a melody we'd composed in fits and starts. By 32, the Queen and Victorian had shed its fixer scars, walls painted sage, bookshelves groaning undertones of poetry and engineering manuals, Luna's successor, a lanky lab mix named Rio, sprawling on rugs we'd knotted ourselves during lazy Sundays. Seattle had weathered us as it did its bridges, rust and resilience intertwined, the bay's tides a constant reminder that pull and release were love's native tongue. Alex's career crested steady, Boeing's innovations bearing his signature, conference keynotes drawing crowds where he'd credit my partner, the one who grounds me. Audiences nodded, inclusive nods, but backstage, his hand in mine trembled faint, the ghost of old stages lingering. My app evolved into a non-profit arm, partnerships with centers nationwide, testimonials flooding inboxes, young men writing of check-ins that staved off edges, their words balm to the voids we'd known. Family wove tighter, Mrs. Rivera a fixture, her Sunday suppers a ritual of mole simmering slow, stories of Alex's mischief bridging generations. Spokane visits normalized, parents' farm yielding apples we pressed into cider, dad's gruff proud of you, son, over glasses clinking, mom's hugs lingering longer. No grand proclamations, but acceptance bloomed quiet, like the dahlias she mailed each spring. We traveled deliberate, Costa Rica's rainforests, zipline slicing canopies, nights in hammocks swaying to howler calls, Iceland's geysers erupting primal, hot springs geothermal cradling whispers of dreams deferred. Each journey etched us deeper, tattoos expanding, a wave curling around the compass, symbol of ebbs endured. Crisis revisited in waves, softer now, Alex's shoulder surgery post-prototype crash landing, me navigating OR waits with crosswords half-solved, my bout with burnout, app deadlines crushing, his coaxing retreats to cabin hideaways where axes split wood, therapy. Lean, he'd urge, and I did, trust a muscle honed. Betrayal's echo faded to lesson, fidelity a choice renewed in mundane, opting home over happy hours, confessions prompt over concealments. Intimacy matured, less urgency more depth, mornings slow, coffee cooling as bodies conversed fluent, evenings exploratory, toys tucked in nightstands, boundaries voiced with care. Children entered discourse earnest, fostering seminars attended, profiles poured over. A boy named Kai arrived at 8, foster to adopt, wide eyes wary in our threshold, Rio's nose nudging tentative friendship. Nights initial were vigils, his nightmares pulling us to mattress edges, stories spun of superheroes queer and bold. Like you and Papa, he'd ask, and Alex's nod beamed, our family coalescing in bedtime rituals, school runs amid traffic snarls, parent-teacher conferences laced pride. Kai's integration tested, tantrums flaring old wounds, Alex's patience fraying to snaps, my mediation strained, but growth followed, family therapy a compass. Birthdays marked milestones, his 10th with volcano cake erupting, friend circle expanding to include Theo's partner, Mia's wife, a tapestry queer and chosen. Legacy loomed redefined, not bloodlines but impacts, Kai's art echoing my app's ethos, Alex's mentorships at Boeing inclusive, pipelines for underrepresented engineers. Community anchored, pride floats we built garish, marching with Kai waving flags rainbow-hued, fundraisers for the center, auctions of our pottery won boisterously. Autumns became reflection season, volunteer park benches hosting vow renewals annual, words evolving, I choose you, in fractures and full moons. Witnesses rotated, Mrs. Rivera teary, parents visiting with pies, Kai rolling eyes adolescent but joining hands. Winters warmed inward, holidays a mosaic, tamales steaming alongside latkes from my side, trees doubly adorned Norwegian and Mexican. New Year's fire pits in backyards shared, resolutions whispered, more presence, less scroll. Spring seeded hope, gardens tilled with Kai's small hands, seeds of cosmos and cosmos, flowers and universe, pushing soil. Summers sailed, ferries to islands for kayaks, Kai's laughter echoing as we capsized playful. Falls harvested gratitude, leaves raked communal, bonfires crackling tales. Winters closed circles, snowfalls rare but magical, sleds whipping hills, cocoa mugs steaming vows. Through it, conflicts crested gentle, Kai's coming out at 14, our arms open as his tears fell, navigating school whispers with counselors allied, Alex's sabbatical urge, a year in Europe teaching, my counter with family moored, go, we'll bridge. He stayed, choice affirming, travels truncated to summers abroad, Kai's passport stamped with wonders. Crisis final came swift, my diagnosis, prostate, early, treatable, scan stark but surgeons assured. Alex's vigil mirrored mine past, hands holding through infusions, Kai's drawings taped to walls defiant. You'll kick it, Dad, he vowed, voice cracking teen deep. Recovery was odyssey, wigs eschewed for buzzed solidarity, Alex shearing solidarity, Kai giggling mirror reflected. Gratitude amplified, days savored, park picnics, Kai soccer goals cheered horse, evenings 3 entwined on couches, films flickering. Healing culminated ridgetop, Olympics overlook, Kai now 18 college bound, arms around us. You guys. You're my why. Tears traced, pride vast as valleys below. Alex's whisper, a new ours. Years later, grey threading temples, we sat porch swings creaking, Rio's pup grandpup nosing feet, Kai's visits with partner, a soft-spoken artist, filling home with new laughter. Legacy unfolded, his non-profit scaled, Alex's designs eco-pioneering, our story shared in talks, ripples touching lives unspoken. In quiet, hand in hand, bay glittering eternal, I knew, love, forged in catches and changes, watchers and unwatched, was the human truest, flawed, fierce, forever. The storms we'd weathered, betrayals bared, crises carved, taught that healing wasn't absence of wound, but presence in its mending. We chose, daily, the gaze unbroken, the change embraced, vulnerability the strength supreme. In America's mosaic modern, from rainy coasts to heartland echoes, we'd built not perfection, but profound, a life where catching another's eye sparked not end, but endless beginning.